This life-size model demonstrates the way in which coal was mined in the early hand mining days. The skip you can see is an actual skip from the early days. The pony is kitted out in the same manner as used from the 1920s onwards in Collinsville. The first mining families began to arrive in Collinsville in 1919, with production beginning in 1921. While there were periods of miners working on a wage, most of the mining during the early era was done by contract. The men worked a daily dag, a tally that a pair of miners must produce each day, usually between 18 and 22 skips per day. The skips would hold 1 tonne of coal, though when loaded correctly could hold up to 2,500 weight, or 1.2 tonnes of coal. Miners would be paid by the tonne, and from their pay they had to supply their own equipment, shovels, picks, drills and explosives. By the time the railway was completed to Bowen in 1922, the Collinsville State Mine was producing about 400 tonnes of coal per day. Conditions above ground and below in the early days were tough. Collinsville was a town of bag humpies and bark huts. Water was kept in hollowed logs and supplies were brought in from Bowen once a month. Most families got by eating what could be found in the surrounding bush, trading scones and sweets for spear-caught fish and birds with the local Aborigines. During the 1930s, the Depression made life even harder, with miners averaging only 3 to 4 days' work each fortnight. Underground, the conditions were nearly unbearable. Mines in Queensland were smaller than those in New South Wales due to a lack of local demand for coal. The industry therefore was much slower to adopt new mining techniques and safe practices. Employers tended to rely upon traditional gut-busting manual methods to remove the coal. The miners would begin work at 8 a.m, walking up to 3/4 of a mile down the tunnel. Once arriving at their allocated board, the men would handbore the face, insert explosives and fire the face, and then use picks and shovels to extract the coal. Once the skip was loaded, they either used pit ponies or their own hands to wheel the skip to the pit bottom. Once their dag was filled, the miners were free to go home, or more likely to the pub. The heat underground was intense, with a sticky humidity that caused the skin to chafe and blister. To prevent this, miners often worked naked, wearing nothing but boots or in their wives' old bloomers. There were also cockroach infestations, millions of the insects dwelling underground, thriving in the sticky heat and moisture. After the Second World War, in 1946, a national inquiry was established by the Chifley Labor government to investigate the conditions of men working underground across Australia. Named after the Supreme Court judge who headed the inquest, the Davidson inquiry proved to be the turning point for the industry. The report, released in 1946, contained some surprising and devastating descriptions of underground mines, particularly in Queensland. Collinsville and Scottsville were labelled as unsatisfactory in many areas, including dust, heat and ventilation. Most disturbing, however, was the use of naked carbide lamps in areas which had been found to contain flammable gases. The report warned that without further action, the risk of devastating explosions was high. As a result of the Davidson inquiry, the Queensland Government introduced new legislation, the Coal Mining Act's Amendment Bill, ensuring that mines follow strict procedures relating to health, safety, ventilation and amenities. From this point, it was only a short step to mechanisation and the end of the hand mining era.